Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IraSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, February 5th. Notre Dame's recruiting class just completed yesterday officially. All the signees are in, and everyone who's going to be joining the class is in. Teddy Jarrard was kind of a headliner there. He reclassified to the 2026 class from 2027 at quarterback. We've got some film on him. We've got some highlight tape. We're going to talk about him and his abilities and what he could bring to the quarterback room in 2026. We'll talk about the Blue Gold game was just announced with the date. We've got the date for that. And then we'll talk about Jamie's bullish on the O-line. I want to discuss that topic. Everyone's very interested in Notre Dame's offensive line. It's going to be a very fun show today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, please hit that like. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. He is Chicago's go-to for the best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. They're known for their next-level craftsmanship using the finest fabrics. ESQ has introduced a 100% Pima cotton T-shirt to go along with its award-winning bamboo dress shirt, which is available for purchase online. Now they've got showrooms both downtown Chicago and in Winnetka. Book your custom fitting at esqclothing.com and step into confidence with Chicago's finest. Mention ISD your appointment or use code ISD at checkout and receive 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. Before we get to Notre Dame stuff, it is the Super Bowl this weekend, Jamie, and I'm not super interested in it in terms of like having a rooting interest, although I'm always ready to root against Boston, anything Boston. So I will be rooting for the Seahawks. Who do you got in the game? Who do you like? I had this conversation at soccer practice yesterday. Who do you like in this matchup?
I mean, I like the Seahawks. I just think they're better up front, and that's ultimately going to be the difference. I think that's why Seattle's been, pretty much. It's weird. There wasn't really a dominant team this year in the NFL, but the reason why they were the number one seed in the NFC was because of their, I think, how good they were up front, and then obviously they've had guys like step up, like Jackson Smith and Jigba, like had like a star making year this year, and Kenneth Walker's a really good back, and they have good talent. Great to see Julian Love; he's balling out there. So I just think they have a better team. Like, I think it's a surprise, really, that New England is where they're at right now. Like, they're kind of like above, like, or not above, but in front of like where you would expect them to be at this time. And for them to even make the game, I think is a big deal. I'm not saying they have no chance in the game. I think they certainly do, but I would pick Seattle. I think they're just the better team. Like, Darnold would have to have like one of those disastrous Darnold games, I think, for them to lose.
Yeah. I think too, there's I don't follow it that closely in terms of like the minutia or whatever. I have seen a bunch of chatter about how New England going like into the playoffs had kind of like an easy schedule. So they didn't play a bunch of tough teams. And then like, you get Denver in that like snows, like weirdness. And you also like get them without Bo Nix too. And then you also had the corpse that is CJ Stroud right now. Which like, I thought he played so poorly in that game, and it was almost not defensive induced. Like, I just felt like it was, he just like was out of sorts. Just kind of losing.
He almost gave away the Steelers game, and they couldn't do anything on that game.
Yeah. So I thought they had a good draw. I thought that it worked out for them. Even in terms of the elements where it's like snowing and just it completely negates anything. Like, you already have a backup, and now it's like snowing and terrible, and there's nothing they can do, and they don't trust him. So, and I feel like Seattle, it's like they had to go through the Rams, right? They went through the Rams a couple of times. Like, I thought they had to play better teams and they had to beat better teams. So they're more proven. I'm going to go with Seattle in this game. Plus, it's on the West Coast. I do think Mike Vrabel's a really good coach. I think that's kind of been proven. So, he's done a very good job there. So it'll be interesting. Hope everyone enjoys the football game. Notre Dame's blue gold game is scheduled for April 25th. As I recall, this would have been great for me last year, given my my vacation schedule. As you recall, they put it when I was in Europe. So I pretty much missed everything. So I will not be in Europe this year. I will be around so I can talk about the game and we can do a show after the game. So that's good. But April 25th, it's going to be on Peacock. So if you don't have Peacock, then you're just going to have to learn from the game from our beautiful eyes and our beautiful insights. So that's going to be really fun. Blayberg wants to talk about Xander Edwards. He's talked about this in previous shows as well. And if you're going to continue to bring it up, I will respond to it because it's a good opportunity to do that. Xander Edwards review. What are your thoughts on him? This is the son of Mark Edwards.
Mark Edwards, yeah.
The Notre Dame fullback.
I think he's a really good player. I thought that they would have offered him. I kind of understand why they didn't make him a priority. I think one of these things that people kind of don't factor into it is that if they don't view him as like if they like people more than him, well, if they offer him, they probably think he's going to commit.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the thing. Like, and they don't want to do that where he's a running back. Oh, yeah. Sorry for Ray John. For people that don't know, he's a running back. And obviously they don't have fullbacks like Mark Edwards anymore, right? But he's a running back. Obviously, there's not a lot of white guy running backs out there. That's not why they haven't offered him. There are some pretty good ones, but not a ton of them. But I just think that they liked some other guys more, and then they didn't want to approach it in a way where, yeah, if they offer and he's not one of the top guys and he's and he commits, it's like, well, they don't want to process a guy out later, like that's not what they want to do. So I think that's my honest opinion. I don't know if that's the fact. That's just my take on it. Yeah, and I like him, but I would say, like, if I just took his name out of it, I would probably say, yeah, I get it why they like other backs, a few other backs more, but he's good. He's a good prospect.
He is a good prospect. I think running back's hard because if you're only going to take like one or two,
and I guess they're probably only going to take one, yeah,
if they're only going to take one, well then if you've got a guy, let's just say I'll just say top 100 guy, right, in their mind. Right. If you've got him and you've got Xander Edwards, let's say he's a top 200 guy. If they like someone more, then they just need to take that player who they like more. And maybe down the line, if they don't land him, or maybe they change their mind on Xander Edwards or whatever, then they can kind of circle back. Obviously that gets complicated sometimes because it's like, hey, you didn't offer me to originally. Right. And you got to mend those fences or whatever it might be. But this has nothing to do with my opinion of Xander Edwards. I'm not trying to knock him as a player or anything. I just think the staff, thinks other players are better. And if they're only taking one, then, you can only take one, and you got to take the better player in their mind.
Yeah. And I think too, the position he plays is the important thing. It's kind of like a running back. It's a lot like quarterback. Maybe you take two, like you said.
Yeah.
But they just took two. And they took two, they took one in the other class. They're probably not going to, if they took two, they would probably take another guy like late if they thought somebody was going to transfer out, right? Like they needed like bodies. Like you're just not going to have too much because you can't have 7 running backs on scholarship, because if you do, the 7th guy, like that guy's not going to stick around. Like it's not going to happen. So, it is different than saying like just Bryce Young, for example. It's like, okay, well, they offer Bryce Young. It's like, well, even if they obviously thought he was going to be something and then he did become something, but like you can offer it because you can take extra defensive linemen in a way that you can't. A receiver, Jerome Bettis Jr., it's different.
You can take 5.
Take 4 or 5 in a class,
Yeah.
right? Like running back, you're taking 1, maybe 2. No one ever takes 3 running backs in a class, right? Like that never happened. So I think because of that, it does complicate things, right? So and it's unfortunate because I'm sure he does probably feel a certain way about not, being a priority.
Right. And that's understandable as well. I mean, he's
yeah.
because he's good enough for it.
He's good. Yeah.
Right. Like he's good enough to be offered a scholarship by Notre Dame. But like I said, if they're prioritizing other players, then that's what they're doing. Well, let's talk about Teddy Jarrard. He signed yesterday officially, so he is in the Notre Dame class. He will be arriving in the summer as he finishes up his high school career in Georgia. I'm excited about this player. I think he's good. It's kind of hard to process now that he's going. You viewed him before as a okay, just finished his junior year. Let's see how he is as senior. I love where he is as a junior. Now that track is kind of accelerated here. And not only is it accelerated, but he does have a chance to win the backup quarterback job. So now it's like you do look at him a little bit differently. I know he did really well on the on kind of the postseason circuit there, where he played in the All-Star game with Joey O'Brien. Made some very good throws in that game there. His ranking is kind of, I mean, first of all, the rankings are a sham, except for Jamie U's top 50, which is the gospel of college football rankings. But it's kind of messed up because when you're late to reclassify, how do you get evaluated versus the other quarterbacks? Like that's always going to get skewed there. But let's talk about him as a quarterback and what you like in him. And then we'll talk about the chances that he can, he can actually try to be the backup for Notre Dame in 2026.
Yeah, just quick on the rankings first. I think that like one of the things is like 247, they just like for whatever reason, they never like him. They'd never liked him. And that's whatever. And they weren't going to change the ranking no matter what. So, hey, if they can eat it, if it turns out bad, and I think it could turn out bad because I think he's a pretty good player. I think part of the reason why, one of the reasons why it totally makes sense that he reclassified is he's older.
Yeah.
Like he is older. So it's not a thing where it's similar to like the Jimmy Clausen thing, where Jimmy Clausen really probably should have reclassified as well. If you think about it, people weren't doing it at that time, but he probably should have, because that would have been something that he was already good enough when he was a senior in high school to go as a freshman, and he probably would have went there. He would have sat a year and learned under, Brady Quinn was the quarterback and all of that. Right. So I think that probably would have helped him. But I think this is actually the greatest thing for Gerard, because, he gets that head start there. He's already played a lot of football, right? Like because he started, 3 years, right? Or essentially like 2.5 years or whatever, right? Because he was injured for some and whatever. But like he's played a lot of football already. And I really like him as a prospect. You see all these throws, like he's a great rhythm thrower, like awesome touch here on the deep ball. And that's something that really kind of stands out. Guy who really deals with pressure well in terms of just his pocket movement, in terms of just keeping his eyes down the field. And then now obviously it's going to go to some of this outside of the pocket stuff. You see him throw on the move and what he can do to kind of improvise. And I think this is kind of a little bit, I think, similar to like CJ Carr can do some of the stuff, but like you don't see it as much from CJ Carr because he was just, I think, really, really good from the pocket and, making really good within the structure of the offense.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at, say, like Riley Leonard and what he did with some of his stuff out of the pocket, it's kind of similar to that. And I'm not saying he's that kind of runner, but just in terms of like his ability to escape, his ability to like make plays and improvise and stuff, that's there. And I think that's that's always valuable. That's very, very valuable.
Yeah.
Because I think with CJ Carr, seeing one of the reasons why it upset me that they did get in the playoff, because CJ Carr, if he would have got tested against some of these other defenses. Well, sometimes you have to make those plays outside of the framework of the play because just the defense is too good. And then you have to kind of like go above that. And I think we would have saw more of that from Carr in the playoff. And I think that's the kind of thing we'll see from Gerard as well. Yeah, I think he's someone who needs to like physically develop more. You see, he's a skinny kid right now, but he's easily got the frame to get a lot bigger. He's getting that size isn't going to be a problem. He's obviously he's got legit size. He's got legit hand size. Everything like he checks all these kind of boxes that you want. I don't think he has like an electric arm or anything like that, but he's got more than enough arm. And I think he's, in general, he's like accurate and does a really, really good job with his pocket movement.
Good RPO guy. Love him as an RPO thrower. That's really good. I like how he just goes for it. Like he'll make the throws. Like he is not afraid to try to fit a ball in. He wants to throw that ball over the top on a like a fade or like a post or whatever. And so I like his attitude in the pocket. Like I think, pushing the ball and just kind of wanting to take chances. Like I like his kind of moxie back there and on that regard. His arm is like, I like the flick of the wrist. Like he has a 3/4 motion. And it's always kind of 3/4, which is fine. As long as your motion is repeatable, I'm all good with it. But I like how he just kind of can flick the ball. Like, I don't know, like you said, I don't know if his arm strength is such that it's like I'm throwing the ball 60 yards in the air, like over the top. I don't know that that's true. And maybe like he can get stronger as well. So like, we talked about he needs to get stronger, but I don't know. I just like his I like the way he plays the game and I like his play style.
Baseball player as well.
Yeah, baseball player. Where do you rate his athleticism? Because I was trying to think of like what I don't know really what quarterback I think his comp would be to like a Notre Dame quarterback. Like I think the way that he kind of flicks the ball reminds me of Golson a little bit. Or like, and even in that regard, like kind of like Kenny Minchie, the way that they all kind of flick the ball the same way. And I always appreciate that. But from a athleticism point of view, like, is he more athletic than Minchie is? I'm having a hard time like really pegging what could he be as an athlete runner in college.
That's the thing. Okay, well, Minchie's a perfect example because he wasn't a guy who was used as a runner a lot. And then all of a sudden that became like the thing that people pointed to. Well, he's such a great runner and whatever. Like he's more dangerous there. And he obviously is a good runner and can do that. And would have been used more if he was the starter this year. He would have been used more in design run game than Carr was. I would say this, I'd put him maybe not Minchie, but kind of like in between Carr and Minchie. I would say probably around there, like in terms of like, I do think they will use him in more designed run stuff. I think I could see that. And yeah, just overall, I just think he's a good athlete. Like I don't think there isn't like a 1-to-1 that I would say like, because Ian Book to me was, if you look at just out of quarterbacks in the last 15 years, he was the guy that was like probably the best athlete. Really, it's kind of crazy that people don't really associate, but he probably was the best athlete in terms of like just go out and be a ball player and like make a guy miss, do this, whatever, right?
In the non-Riley Leonard division.
In the non-Riley Leonard, because like Riley Leonard, I almost put in his own category because no one else you could run quarterback power with, you know, like, so, and Riley Leonard to me is like the unicorn of them all, but everybody else, it's like Book, I think is a separate kind of category. And I wouldn't say Gerard is quite there, but he's closer to there than probably he is to a lot of other guys.
It's premature to say because I think he has physical development to do like this off season. Like whatever he's doing now, like I'm sure he's just going to try to build up his body to be ready for college football when he arrives to Notre Dame in the summer. And then there's obviously like, development that has to happen. Is he more viable to you as like a backup to CJ Carr than like Noah Grubbs?
For this season, you know what? I just don't know, because I just think how Grubbs looks in the spring and how well he picks up the offense and all of that. Like, it's one of these things where you can say, well, Gerard, well, he's not going to be, he's going to be focusing. He's going to be in the playbook. He's going to be doing all this. It's different when you're actually on campus and you're taking part in that. And then when you get there in June, because I think where you can be a corner and come in, and not to say you still have to learn the defense and stuff, but athleticism takes over more. There's just so much more mental and that's why I think O-lineman, for an O-lineman to come in the summer and play as a freshman, it just is very rare. It's very rare for a guy to be able to do that now, because it's not just the physical part, it's the mental part. And so Grubbs is just going to have a big edge on him in that category. I mean, I think if it was 1-to-1 and you said, well, Gerard was on campus now and then Grubbs was on campus now, I would say, yeah, I think Gerard would be the backup. That would be my opinion. But now it's just, you just have to kind of wait and see, because you just never know where Grubbs is going to be by, April 25th or whatever. Yeah.
Right. I will say that, one thing that both of these guys have going for them is they've both played a ton of football, and they've been like the man at their schools for a long time. And that's good. Sometimes, like, I think, like, for example, like Kenny Minchie was, when he came to Notre Dame, he hadn't played that much football because there were injuries and stuff, and he hadn't been, the starting quarterback for very long. So he hadn't had that many starts in high school. So that was kind of one where it was like, you don't know as much about him in terms of how he's going to perform in high pressure situations and stuff like that. Like these two quarterbacks, you do have that knowledge, and that's good. Given Notre Dame's quarterback situation specifically right here. We got Rich Tolman here with a comment about Xander Edwards. It would be a huge mistake for Notre Dame not to recruit Xander Edwards. They don't have an offensive weapon on the roster as skilled and capable of combining power, toughness, and speed. Sure. I mean, I think the thing is like this is where
come on now. I can't let this stand. Did you see the backs they recruited this year? Those guys are pretty good.
Javian Osborne's a good player.
Javian Osborne, like, these guys, they're pretty skilled, powerful. Like, whatever. And I'm not, this isn't even a shot at Xander Edwards. We can't be making these hyperbolic statements like this. He's a 2028 kid. He's 2028. Keydron Young, there, exactly, too. Obviously, he was hurt last year, but, like, we can't be. And that's the other thing that we did mention. Xander Edwards is 2028. So that's why it's like, and I get it. All these everybody else is, offering him now and that, whatever. That's fine. Well, if Florida State offers now and he commits to Florida State, and then Florida State likes somebody better, and then they bump him out and go for something, that's not going to be a big deal. Yeah, it would be a huge deal if they did that to Mark Edwards' kid. So that's why it's 2028. Like, they have basically, I would say, this whole year before it gets, or maybe not the whole year, but this upcoming fall, if they can either decide to offer him this fall or this spring during the evaluation period, or they're not going to go for him, because Notre Dame doesn't have that many 2028 offers out. There's not that many out there. Mm-hmm. So I think it just, one of these things, it's like, I get it, because he's a Notre Dame legacy and people love his dad and he's a good player and all that kind of stuff, but they're pieces of it, and why they, don't want to rush it.
I think people have, because of who he is, people feel like you got to get him in, and it's like, I don't know that to your point, I don't know that we would talk about this if he was
Definitely we're not.
Xander Johnson. Like I just, we would view him as a prospect, and the staff would evaluate it, and we would move on. I do think there is something to be said for the fact that, like, if you have a player who would crawl and walk to South Bend, I think that kind of matters at a school like Notre Dame, but it doesn't matter so much that you're going to discount all the other talent that's available to you, is what I'm saying. So look, like you said, he's a 2028. There's a lot of evaluation to go. There's a lot that should go into it, right? So we can talk about that. You are bullish on Notre Dame's offensive line. You wrote about it today in 6 Thoughts on Thursday. So everyone go check that out, because there's 6 thoughts, not just this one, but I wanted to highlight it because we talked a good amount about the offensive line and Joe Rudolph in the last show. Wanted to bring it back and talk about the actual talent and how you feel like that talent is going to manifest itself on the football field in 2026.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really kind of stands out is the fact that last year, they've had 2 years in a row of horrendous injury luck. Like, I didn't even really think about it till I was like kind of looking back on it, because I was just thinking, I was like, wow, to have 2 years where you're losing like 3 starters basically, out for significant portions of the season.
Yeah.
Is that, I'm sure it probably happened sometime in the 90s or something. Like it could have happened, whatever. But even like the 2016 season, which was obviously a disaster, just a huge garbage fire of a season. I think that if you go back and look at that season, the O-line was mostly intact for the whole season. There was like the right guard position was a little bit iffy in terms of they split some guys there, but they didn't have people miss like a ton of games. That wasn't something that happened. And, 2015, if you look at it, Quentin Nelson missed 1 game with an ankle sprain. Like all these other years, 2019 is the only other year where it's like Kramer and Hainsey went down the back half of the season, and then they had to, 2 guys had to step in there. And then even 2018, yeah, you lose Alex Bars. Well, that was the only major injury they had. That was it. And then you plugged in Aaron Banks eventually, right? And so they haven't had that. So to have that kind of 2 years in a row, you have to think, can it be 3? Or is Charles Jagasaw, like, if either he's not going to play, he's going to play, or he's going to not, or not play. But I doubt it's going to go into a thing where, well, first week of the season, a starter is out, or like before the season even starts, a starter's already out. Like, to have that happen 3 years in a row, it's just not very common. So I think they'll probably have better injury luck. But also because of those injuries, they had guys like Otting and Absher start a bunch of games and get a bunch of experience. And because Jagasaw was out, well, Gerby Lambert started the whole year, and then he got all of that experience. So that made them that much stronger. They have 2,757 snaps returning 2026, 71% of their total snaps on the O-line. In 2024, they had 48.6 or 48.8, sorry, 58.6 last year. So that's a big difference. It's a big difference. So yes, they lost Billy Schroutz, was an absolute stud last year. Emil Wagner obviously started, multiple seasons, was a pretty good player. But they have 20 scholarship offensive linemen. 17 of them were 4 or 5 stars.
Yeah.
17 of them. Like, that's a lot. And I just think they have 6 guys coming back who have started games with starting experience. Obviously, there's so much more ceiling there for them if Jagasaw is available, or, well, now you get to move Lambert out to right tackle, and now you get to see, because it's a more natural position for him. Well, what about Will Black? What about Matty Augustine? Right? Like, maybe one of those guys can step up. Now you also have a situation where you're like, well, you've obviously, when Craig comes back, you feel good about him. We still feel good about Joe Otting too. What if Joe Otting is good enough that you think he can be our starting center? And Ashton Craig, I think he, because not all the guys who play center could play guard. I think he could play guard. And so that's a possibility too. So I just think they have a really good chance to have a great starting five. Don't ask me where everyone's going to. Everybody knows I hate that question about like how it's going to work out. I don't know. But I have a feeling too that either Black or Augustine will be the, I'm not saying they're going to be as good as Quentin Nelson, but I'm just saying, like in 2015, they brought back Stanley, they brought back Nick Martin, Steve Elmer. Those were the starters returning. But then McGlinchey was like the start at the end of the last season of 2014, started the last 2 games. And then you had Quentin Nelson come in as a redshirt freshman and start. I think they could, if you just say, well, Jugsaw and Will Black, let's say those 2. Well, you add those guys in. If those guys become starters, the ceiling of the offensive line goes up. And I think that is a realistic thing that can happen. I think the offensive line has a chance to be great.
I mean, they definitely have the pieces. It's interesting when we think about guys like Black and Augustine, like the I don't want to say hype. It's just like, because people talk to you and tell you like, hey, I think this guy's good. Are they hyping them, or is it just like, I'm just telling you, I think this is going to be a good player? It's kind of like Jeremiah Love a little bit in terms of just like, hey, people just said matter of factly he's going to be really good, and it wasn't about hyping him. It was just a true thing. And so there is a lot of talk about Will Black and Matty Augustine. It's like they're very excited about their progress and things like that. There's always questions about, like Rajon's asking if they could move Knapp to guard. I feel like that gets brought up a lot. I mean, maybe, right? Like those are things that if someone like him, I could see him playing kind of any position on the offensive line, because he's big enough, he's mobile enough to play tackle, but like he's also big enough to play guard. I could see him playing center because of his mobility. Like I could see it, right? I don't know what Joe Rudolph specifically thinks about it, so it's kind of hard for me to answer. Like, could he move to? Yeah. Sure, if that's what Joe Rudolph thinks. I don't know. I think his skill set lends itself to possibly doing that, but I mean, is that not kind of true? Like Gerby Lambert, who everyone thought was only going to be a tackle, is now playing guard. Yeah. Is that not kind of true for most offensive linemen? It's like they could kind of move them around a little bit.
Oh yeah. Well, and also too, there's a lot of guys like Quentin Nelson could have started at tackle for Notre Dame. Zach Martin, like we said, right, was like, he's one of the best guards of all time, was, a 4-year starter at left tackle. And yeah, just to like Raymond Horton, we were shouting you out. We weren't trying to criticize you. We were trying to say, you bring it up. We appreciate what you do in the chat. Yeah. So yeah, we were shouting you out just to kind of clarify that. But I think too, the thing with Knapp is last year, I think the conversation of whether or not, hey, maybe you should kick inside the guard, or maybe you should go play center, maybe that's his best position or whatever. I think that was a lot more of a pertinent conversation last year than it is this year, because in his freshman year, he struggled a lot in pass pro. Like, he had good moments, but he had bad moments, like a lot of freshmen, like you would expect. But his pass pro wasn't great. It was not at all. Like, and you would say that was the thing that you were like, well, maybe he can't do it. I want to see what he makes. He was significantly better as a sophomore, significantly better, which isn't surprising, but that was the thing. If he didn't do that, if he didn't make that step, then I would say, yeah, he should go there. But it's just not to say that, like, well, this guy's already started 2 years at left tackle, and maybe his best position is there. But unless you know, like if Will Black, say Will Black is the second team, left tackle, or Matty Augustine, one of those guys or whatever, is the second team left tackle, or even Styles Prescott. Say one of those guys is the second team left tackle, and that guy has just looked lights out and they're playing great. Then you say, well, it's a battle. We're battling for the left guard position or the right guard or whatever.
Yeah.
And this guy, maybe we should run him with the ones and we should take a look there. But until that happens, then I don't know if you would do that. And I think one of the things with Gerby Lambert too, why he got a look at right guard was like, man, he looks really good as the second team right tackle right now.
Yeah.
And he's one of our 5 best. So someone has to go out there and also prove, because Knapp, is one of your 5 best. He's probably one of your best too. So someone else has to go out there and prove it that they can be one of those guys. And you can't just say because Gerby Lambert should be a left tackle or because this, whatever. No, they got to go out and prove it. And they get a ton of reps, guys. All these guys get a ton of reps. They get to look at them every day. So I think you would get a pretty good evaluation of where they're at. And I'm excited. I do wonder too, because not that I think like Grayson McKeo or any one of these freshmen. I think it would be Knapp is the only guy under Rudolph that is a freshman that hasn't redshirted. Everybody else redshirted. So I would say very likely that the 6 offensive line, especially Grayson McKeo, has played 2 years of offensive line. I think it's probably a good idea that he redshirts and then, could get into the mix in 2027. But sometimes you never know, because Joe Alt, obviously there was other things with him, and like his dad being a former Pro Bowl left tackle and all that kind of stuff. And him just being a freak, but played 1 year of offensive line. Then all of a sudden he came in. He's a guy who came in the summer, was the rare guy. And they were like, this guy might be as good or better than Blake Fisher, who was the best, we thought was the best freshman O-lineman we saw in the spring. So I don't know, maybe one of those guys is able to kind of do it. But if anything, I think us just talking about all of these guys here just shows like the depth is really, really good. Like they have a lot of options there, where I do think there's going to be guys who are good players that won't start. And maybe they'll have to, if they have injuries, those guys will have to play. Obviously they had a lot of injuries the last 2 years, but there's a chance that there's going to be really good players who don't even play other than garbage time this year, just because of how talented they are up front. And I always think, when you get competition like that, it's going to, push all these guys to be better. I'm really, really excited about the offensive line. I think, and also 4th year, Joe Rudolph, all these guys have been with him. It's the first time since Harry Hiestand that they've had a guy for 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
And that definitely helps when it comes to offensive line play.
Yeah. I think for Knapp, it's just, I was thinking about this. I think he is like the Ian Book of left tackles, where I think people understand that he's good, but it's like, what is his ceiling? Is he ever going to be like a 1st round pick? Like, probably not. And I think people want Notre Dame's left tackle to be a 1st round pick, understandably, because that's usually the case, right? Or someone who's very highly thought of that way. And I think that people kind of look at Anthony Knapp and think like he's good. He's not. Like, is he national championship caliber? Like, is he going to be dominant? Like, I think people question that. And because in the same way they question Ian Book, right? Even though his obviously his career speaks for itself. So I think that's where people are looking at it. It's hard to say, like, because let me find it. I think Rajon, or no, it was Raymond Horton. What do you think of a lineup of Black, Absher, Knapp, Jagisaw, and Gerby Lambert? Like, maybe. You'd have to see it, right? Like, if that's what Joe Rudolph thought, if it was those players, like, those are 5 very good players, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say no to anything like that, but it just, you need to see them come out in the spring, and you need to see them kind of rep it and try that sort of thing. Go ahead.
And what I also want to point out is Blayberg, he mentioned the thing about Monroe Freeling, and that's something that I've actually thought about a lot, because Monroe Freeling, obviously Notre Dame fans, a name that Notre Dame fans are very familiar with because of recruiting him and stuff, but then also because he gave up 3 sacks in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah,
like he got abused and was like kind of a big reason they lost the game was because of those sacks that he gave up. I think that like, and then this year he took a huge jump. That is very common with offensive linemen. It is very, very common. And I also think too that like, if you look at, say, like Billy Schrauth, remember how Billy Schrauth, everybody crowned him when he was a redshirt freshman and said, well, Billy Schrauth is going to start. And then they were like, what? Pat Coogan beat him out. I'm funny how like everyone was like, Pat Coogan sucks then. Then now Pat Coogan is like everybody's favorite Notre Dame offensive lineman of the last 20 years. But it is hilarious to me how this works out. But Billy Schrauth was seen as not good enough or not ready. Not good enough, not ready at that time. And then all of a sudden he goes the next year and it was like, okay, well, now it's his time. And don't get me wrong, Billy Schrauth was good in 2024 prior to his ankle injury. And while he was hobbling on it, it was still pretty good. But then this year, he was phenomenal. He was playing at an all-American level, like before he got hurt. And I think it would have been huge to have him in the playoff and all that. But it was like, it took him time to get to there. And not everybody's Quentin Nelson, where they're like, man, this guy is just a friggin' monster right away. Or even Ronnie Stanley, where they're just like at that level. And I think with a lot of guys, so like, I don't, people think Otting and Absher are going to be the same guys that they were last year. No, they will be better. They will be better. Like, so that's the other thing too, is like Gerby Lambert, he has a chance to take a big jump.
Yeah.
A big jump. Gerby Lambert might be an All-American next year. We might be talking about at this time next year, well, Gerby Lambert, like he left for the NFL. Like, I think he probably would stay longer, but he might play well enough that it becomes a conversation. So all of that kind of thing, like, could happen there. Because there's guys who are just going to develop. And that's what I'm really most excited about, because there's still a lot of guys that have played, but they still aren't, I don't think, close to their ceiling yet.
Mm-hmm. It could be very, very good. But we have to see, right? We have to see how it shakes out. And, you want to hear about where Jagisaw is at. Cause I mean, that's a big piece, right? Like, I mean, he could be their best one. You want to know where he's at. I would say it sounds like he won't be participating in the spring. And so that's kind of been up in the air. Last year, Rob Hunt, he did like a press conference around springtime, just about like where everyone was at. And I think that a lot of that was related to the fact that they went so far in the playoffs, and it's like they were going to have a bunch of guys sitting out. So it's like, why are they sitting? Are they hurt, or what's the deal? And so that's, it'd be cool if that happened, but I don't know that they will, just because there's the questions around players aren't going to be as prevalent as they were last year, when you had like key play, like, Jeremiah Love's barely doing anything, and Jaden Greathouse isn't doing anything, and Drake Bowen, and on and on. I think these guys aren't doing anything. Here's why. And that's why he explained that. I should point out, Micah Drescher is also committed to Notre Dame. He finished out their recruiting class. He's a kicker. They got him from Michigan. Sharon Moore left, and so he was able to get out of his letter of intent, or whatever, the financial aid deal. And so he's the kicker for Notre Dame. I did look on Huddle, and I was I'm not putting up kicker highlights, because first of all, they weren't that good. in terms of the video quality. The kicks
Yeah.
were the kicks were gorgeous, Jamie. But we've got like 4.5-second hang time on 47-yard punts. We don't need to do that, but he did finish out the class. So Notre Dame 299 points on 247, which is it's one of those things like, man, I can't believe Notre Dame actually reached that thing. Like, Marcus Freeman, good job by you. Notre Dame getting in the 280s, I was like, man, that'd be great. 299, almost at 300. It would have been 300 if 247 would, bump up Teddy Jarrard a little bit. But again, rankings are a sham. But that concludes Notre Dame's recruiting class, one of the best recruiting classes Notre Dame has had in like 30, 40 years. Let's talk a little bit about explosives, right? Especially as it pertains to the Notre Dame offense, because I think one of the things that Parker Flammang, Stats of War on the Twitter machine, he did this kind of like deep dive into the lack of explosives in college football last year. And Notre Dame kind of was one of the most explosive teams like in the country last year. Was them in Arkansas.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they could just hand the ball to Love and Price and they could create an explosive just by themselves. And I think, let's talk, why do you think it is that the explosives have kind of dipped in college football overall? And B, is there a concern? I think this is a big thing that's kind of hanging over Notre Dame fans with the loss of Love and Price. Are there going to be the same types of explosives in the running game as we've seen in the last couple of years? And I'm not talking to like 90-yard runs or 70-yard runs or whatever it might be, but like the 30 and 40-yard runs. Like, are those going to be available to Notre Dame as well? Do you think those will be there? So A, why do you think there's been a lack of explosives? And B, are you concerned about Notre Dame getting those in the running game next year?
I mean, they're not going to get the exact same. It's just
it won't be like that. Yeah,
it's just going to be impossible for them to do that in the running game. I think it would just be unfair to expect that. When people kind of talk about Jeremiah Love might be the best running back that's ever played at Notre Dame,
right?
And then Jadarian Price, like, probably if he could have got featured as an RB1, maybe he would have been somewhere in the conversation or something like that. Like, right. To have two of those guys on the same team is pretty rare. So I just don't think that the guys that they have on the roster, who are very good, just are going to be like that. Like, it's just, it's too much to expect. In terms of, like you said, the 60, 70, whatever, like, I don't see that. But I do think they will be able to get, some 30 and 40 and like whatever, and do some of that kind of stuff.
Related to the conversation we just had about the whole
related to the offensive line. Also, I think they do a pretty good job of like scheming stuff up. I also think that because they don't have Love and Price this year, teams are going to play a lot more too high shell stuff, and that's going to open things up. That always gives backs a chance to do it. So they're not going to crowd the box as much. You're going to have lighter boxes. You're going to be able to run against that. CJ Carr, and I mean, just Mike Denbrock does a great job, but CJ Carr definitely does a great job of checking into runs when it's like, oh, we got a favorable look here, we're going to do that. Like, so I think there's going to be a lot of times where it's like 3rd and 6 and they got a play called, checked into a run, break off a 30-yard run here, because they thought it was going to be, a pass or whatever. And that is something that I could see happen. And plus, Aeneas Williams, we've seen him break it. I'm not saying he certainly isn't Love or Price, but he can break it to that next level and get to that 3rd level. He can do that. And I think they have other guys capable of that too. So I do think they're going to still be explosive in the run game, just not the same. Like you said, like, I don't think there's going to have the same moments where it's like, well, out of nowhere, you get the Jadarian Price, you run a draw play and he takes it 47 yards to the house against Texas A&M. Like, I think that's going to be, a lot less common. I just don't see that. On the other hand, I think the passing game is still going to be plenty explosive. Despite losing like Fields and Raritan, and even Pauling too. I just think that one of the things, part of it is that they still have a lot of talent at the receiver and they have a lot of speed there. It's just going to have to be different guys. That'll probably be spread out more. And even if Quincy Porter doesn't become like that Fields level guy this year, even someone like Micah Gilbert, if he is the starter there, that is one of the things that he's best at. It's not just something that we've seen like, him do it at occasionally games. I mean, he's beaten like Leonard Moore deep in practice. Yeah. Like, and that's something we've seen. And he can win and do that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot there. And like someone like James Flammang, who if you have a scheme something up and he has space, he can run, man. Like they will get explosives from him and stuff too. Like, or Bremer or someone like they just have a lot of athletes. So I think Mike Denbrock's really good at like scheming up, or like Mylan Graham, or, and we've seen Greathouse have some of those explosives too. And certainly Faison can do some of that. So I just think it'll probably be more spread out amongst it. They won't have maybe a dominant guy, but I think there's still going to be an explosive offense. I don't know if they're going to be the most explosive offense in the country. Their explosive play rate was the thing that they're number one. Interesting that they had the same explosive play rate as Arkansas, but average 2 yards more per explosive play, which I thought was interesting. But I still think it's going to be like plenty explosive. They'll have one of the more explosive offenses in the country. And I think a lot of that has to do with Mike Denbrock too.
Right. I think to the overall trend in college football, I know there's been like a big emphasis recently in like no explosives. Like defensive coordinators and defensive schemes have really gotten better at limiting the explosives, right? Because that'll kill you, right? You want to force short fields. I mean, it's one of those things where it's always, people have always known, like, you want to limit explosives, but it's like, no. Like, this is our main thing. We cannot allow explosives at all. I think so. Because of that, you mentioned the too high shell. Like, we will see more defenses try to play Notre Dame like USC did. And obviously that leads to a situation where and that's the other thing with Notre Dame's offensive line too, is teams are so, one of the reasons CJ Carr and Notre Dame's passing game were as explosive as they were is because you have guys like Love and Price who can just really gash you, and they can hit you for 50, 60 whenever. And so you overcommit to that sort of thing, and that leaves you exposed and in the back. And so CJ Carr averages 9+ yards per attempt, right? Which is, among the leaders in the nation. And you see a team like USC who does the opposite, who says, hey, we're going to take away the deep pass game. We're not going to let you throw it over top of us. And now Notre Dame finally gets some favorable matchups in the box. And what happens? They run for 300, So I think that is what we could see more of next year, just by necessity, right? And I think it's very important that, they get the most out of Faison and Greathouse and Gilbert and Porter and Mylan Graham. Like, I think Mylan Graham, because of this, like, he is a guy who can get over the top. I mean, people talked about, I called him a cross between TJ Jones and Will Fuller. This is what I call, or like Davaris Daniels and Will Fuller. Like, this is how I saw him. And he makes such a big difference. Like, one player can make such a big difference in how opponents try to cover you and try to defend you. And I think he could be a guy like that. I think Faison could be a guy like that. I think, obviously Micah Gilbert, Quincy Porter, we'll see when he gets back at what he is and what he can do. But James Flammang, like you said, like, these are vertical threats that teams have to worry about. They are going to defend Notre Dame differently next year. People are having the same conversations in their rooms. Like, we don't have Love and Price to worry about anymore. We don't have to drop this safety in a situation where he's got to come up and defend the run. It's going to lead to more things. So I don't know that the backs themselves will be explosive, but there's going to be room to run. And that's obviously a very good place for Notre Dame to be in. Plus, like you said, you feel really good about their their offensive line. So what do you think, Jamie? We can end it there for the day.
Yeah.
End up on a good note there. We can end it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know whatever it is. We'll be going live. We'll be back on Monday with Power Hour and Mike and Jamie, and then Tuesday and Thursday next week with Hit and Hustle. So enjoy the Super Bowl, everyone. Have a good time with your family. Eat some good food. Do all those fun things. We'll talk to you next week. Keep hitting and hustling.